Hello again and welcome to another edition of Shed Talk, my weekly magazine type video series looking at the keeping, breeding and showing of Exhibition Budgerigars. Well, as I'm sure you've gathered, I'm now back from my holidays and I'm really pleased to report that there were no major problems in the shed on those 2 weeks that I was away. I do hope that most of you managed to get a couple of weeks away in the summer, if not longer. I know those of you that will be showing, we are right in the middle here in the UK, right in the middle of the show season, so I know a lot of people will put their holidays off until after the show season finishes, just so they can get to as many shows as possible. If you are showing, then good luck with that, and I hope you win lots and lots of awards. But now that I'm back, of course, there's lots and lots of things to think about doing, not least preparing for the breeding season. You know, I need to sort the birds out, work out which ones I'm going to hold back for the show season, so not going to put in the breeding cages straight away. Work out some of those pairings, those initial thoughts on which birds I might put together and which ones I want to get down really quickly. So there's all those bits and pieces I need to think about. Before I can do any of that, I need to get on with some jobs around the two sheds. There's some stuff that I'd like to do in terms of just general maintenance that I want to get on with before the the winter sets in or the autumn sets in and it starts to get wet and cold and dreary. So there's those jobs that I want to do while the weather is still fine, and it's much easier to get out and do, and I'll talk a little bit about that in this video. But the priority, I think, is going to be getting on with some cleaning in here, so cleaning the breeding cages out, cleaning the other spare cages out, and thinking about what hasn't quite worked in the shed. In particular, I've got the new flight cage, the new breeding cages, the wooden breeding cages. I think I mentioned it in a previous video. Where they currently are is in the way, so I will need to think about moving those. But the focus of this video will be on the cleaning process that I'm going to go through, and we'll look at some of those other jobs that I'm doing in future videos, and indeed we'll look at sorting out the birds into the new breeding pairs, those that are going to be kept back for showing, also in a future video. But as always, thanks to all those who are watching this video and supporting the channel. Don't forget, if you do enjoy the videos and want to see more of them, then do hit the like button, and of course please do subscribe. You can always comment, either comment on the YouTube channel or on any of the Facebook posts that I put out. And of course, don't forget, you can join. There is a Shed Talk Facebook page that you're more than welcome to join. There is other information goes on there, so do go over, just search Facebook for Shed Talk and I'm sure you will find us. So what I'll do now then is we'll start looking at these breeding cages and go through the process that I do each year around cleaning them. So the biggest change I intend to make is to do with the finch flight that's behind me. When I first built this smallish flight for the finches, I only had a couple of finches, and my intention was to just treat this flight really as just a bit of fun. So I was wondering whether or not to try and breed a few exhibition zebra finches. That didn't come to anything really, and in fact the zebra finches, the pet type, have just bred in the this particular flight, and because of the way I designed it, it's becoming increasingly more difficult for me to keep this flight clean, because as soon as I open the door, the finches go everywhere, they flap everywhere. Occasionally one will get out, and in the shed it's really difficult. It's quite a large garage here, and it's quite difficult to recatch them and put them back in. My fault, just bad planning. in terms of this particular flight. So my intention is to move the finches out of this flight and down to where currently most of the budgerigars are kept, down to a shed in the garden. It's a bigger flight, but a smaller shed, so if any do come out of the flight, it will be then much easier for me to catch. And also because it's a bigger flight, it will make it easier for me to get in there, shut the door behind me and give it a really good clean. So that's really the main change, I suppose, is that finches are going to be moved from this flight out into the flight outside where the budgerigars are currently kept. So that means I need to find somewhere to put the I suppose the main stock of my budgerigars, and they will go into this flight. My intention is to once I've cleaned this out, is to move the budgerigars into here, because they're less flighty and bigger birds. If any do decide to come out, which is unusual for the budgerigars, they'll be much easier to catch in here and just pop back in, so it won't be quite such a problem keeping this clean for the budgerigars as it is for the finches. I hope that makes sense, and I'm going to do that over the next couple of weeks, or the next month, I suppose, really. That's the biggest change to the shed. Moving the budgerigars into this flight will also mean that I will need to keep control of the number of birds that I'm keeping, and I might talk a little bit about that in the future, particularly in terms of the costs that are constantly going up at the moment, and why I might want to keep the numbers down a little bit. So the budgerigars will be moved into here as I suppose the stock flight for them, when they're not in the breeding cage or in the other cages ready for showing. And so that's the biggest changes, like I say, that I'm going to make to the bird room. Well, that's dealt with the finch flight, and like I say, I plan to do that move, so moving the finch flights out and the budgerigars in, whilst I'm doing my assessment of all the birds that I do around this time of the year, every year. So as I bring them in to assess, that will gradually clear the outside flight of the budgerigars. I can then move the finches out into there. The budgerigars will be kept between a number of flights, and I might talk a bit about that at the end, and it gives me a chance to clean out the main finch flight before I move the budgerigars into there. The other thing that I've done, as you can probably see, is the new breeding cages, stock cages that I recently got have now been moved. Where they were wasn't an ideal location. It was in the way. It was actually, it interfered with some of the light for the nappy flight. So I've moved them to the other end of the shed. It's the end of the shed that really I don't use. It's stuff behind this is just storage, really. So it's not an area that I use for the birds. So, and it's a little bit dark down that end of the thing to keep birds anyway. So I've moved the stock cages, new breeding cages down to this end. They get plenty of light where they are, so that shouldn't be a problem. So that was the other change that I made. It has freed up quite a bit of room and actually helped with just generally cleaning the garage out, just my general, weekly, daily sweep up and hoover. So it certainly helped for that. Well, before I do any of that, the first thing I'm going to do is to give all of the cages in here, so the breeding cages that I've got, the stock breeding cage that I've got behind me, and the other stock cage, and including the nappy flight, a really good thorough clean, particularly the breeding cages. I will make sure that all of those are disinfected, and also the cages behind me and the other cage will also get a disinfect and a thorough clean. So that's my job for this week, is to give everything a really good clean. So let's begin by talking about the breeding cages then. So the breeding cages, I've already taken the perches out. They're currently being soaked in a very lightly diluted bleach. I just use normal household bleach, and I very lightly dilute it, so it's It's probably diluted to, I don't know, it's about 2 parts to every 10, so 1 in every 5, so 5 bits of bleach, 1 bit of normal water. This sounds like quite a lot of bleach. I know a lot of people might be a bit shy of just using normal bleach for cleaning the cages and want to use the specialist things like F10 and the Viodine that I use on almost a daily basis for cleaning the various cages out, and would shy away from just using normal bleach. What I will do is, after I've cleaned both the breeding cages and the other cages with this, is we'll wash it down then in just normal water to make sure that all of the residue of the bleach is removed. So don't forget, you know, the birds aren't going to be in there while I'm using normal bleach, so not a problem. So I've taken the perches out, like I say. They're now currently soaking in that solution. I will then take each of the cages and they will get scrubbed down with the lightly diluted bleach. So I will scrub them down, make sure they're all thoroughly cleaned through. I will also use the same solution to wipe down all of the other cages. So the new stock cages will get wiped down in the same way with that light bleach solution, and so will the small stock cage that I used mostly last year for just holding some of the birds, either prior to the show or for when I was removing birds from the breeding cages. And then finally the nappy fly will also get a thorough clean out. All of the perches will be taken out, and they'll have the bleach solution as well, and the base of the nappy fly will also have the bottom wiped with a the same bleach solution. So I'm trying to kill everything that's in the cages. So that's what I will do. Clearly I need to do all that before I start thinking about moving any of the birds around. Once I've done that, so following on from that, I will then, each of the wooden cages, so the wood stock cages, and breeding cages, will then get a treatment for anti-mite. So I will dust them down with the anti-mite treatment, get it into all of the corners, make sure that I've done all that. I'll do that once it's dry, of course, or once the cages are dry. Get it into all of the corners. So that's the stock cages, and the nappy flight will get that. I will also make sure that the finch flight gets that, although zebra finches in particular tend to be almost an anti-mite treatment in themselves, in terms of the, you know, I've heard lots of people who say if you keep zebras you'll never get mites. So not sure how true that is, but touch wood, I've not seen any. Not to say that I've not got any, but I've not seen any anyway. So but they'll get that, those cages will also get a similar treatment for the anti-mite powder in all of those. So that's the stuff that I will be doing over the next week. Well, it's really good to be back in the shed after the break, even if most of it is just cleaning and tidying up. So I've virtually finished now the cleaning. I've just got the a little bit more work to do in the nappy fight, but all the breeding cages and all the stock cages have now been finished. Please do let me know how you get on with your cleaning, what sort of products you use, how often you clean out the various flights and things. So just leave a comment as always. Coming up in the next video, we'll get a chance to have a look at a few of the birds, because I'm going to start pulling out all of the cockbirds just to do my annual assessment of them, see which ones are likely to be make the show team, which ones are likely to be kept as stock birds in the breeding team, and which ones perhaps I will be able to let go. But that's for the next video. Until then, as usual, please do stay safe and enjoy your birds.